Now we have scores of solutions of Einstein's equations which allow for time travel. So this is an active area of theoretical research.
It began with a man claiming he was from the year 1958. He seemed completely sane, but what he knew defied logic. He described events that hadn't yet occurred in his time, but had since come to pass. Scientists were baffled, unsure how to explain his knowledge. His words didn't feel like mere stories. They felt like warnings. And then he said something that left everyone stunned. It was chilling, unexpected, and impossible to ignore. Nothing was ever the same after that. The discovery, 2006, Kiev, Ukraine. In 2006, a strange case unfolded in Kiev, Ukraine. A man in his mid-20s was found walking through the streets, looking lost and confused. His clothes were out of place, old-fashioned, like something from the 1950s. People noticed, and soon the police were called. When officers approached him, he spoke calmly and politely. He said his name was Sergey Ponomarenko, that he was 25 years old, and that he lived in Kiev. So far, it seemed like a simple situation, just someone confused, or maybe mentally unwell. But things quickly turned strange. The police asked Sergey what year it was. Without hesitation, he answered 1958. When they told him it was actually 2006, he was visibly shocked. He said nothing around him looked familiar. The buildings, the cars, even the signs, none of it made sense to him. He was sure he had been in 1958 just moments ago. Sergey explained that he had gone for a walk with his fiancée. During the walk, he saw a strange flying object in the sky. He took out his camera to take a picture. But after that, everything went blank. When he opened his eyes, he was in a city that looked nothing like the one he knew. He was carrying a camera from the 1950s. Scientists developed the film inside it. What they found was shocking. Clear photos of Kiev as it looked back in the 1950s. The buildings, the streets, and even the cars in the pictures matched that time perfectly. The camera and the film were both tested. They were real and from that era. Sergey also handed over his identification. It was an official Soviet Union ID card. Experts checked it carefully. The paper, the stamps, and even the watermarks were correct for the time period. The ID listed his birth year as 1932, which meant he should have been over 70 years old in 2006. But he clearly looked like he was only 25. Doctors examined him too. He was in good health with no signs of aging. There were no records of him in any modern database. Nothing about him existed in the modern world. Even the way he acted made things weirder. He didn't know what a cell phone was. He didn't recognize modern appliances, vehicles, or parts of the city. To him, it was all brand new. His confusion seemed real, not something someone could easily fake. By this point, the police and scientists were stunned. Everything checked out: his clothes, his ID, the photos, and his camera. And yet, the story didn't make sense. It seemed impossible. Then something even stranger happened. Just as the investigation was picking up, Sergey disappeared. He vanished without warning. There was no sign of where he went or how he left. He simply disappeared, just as suddenly as he had arrived. No one ever saw Sergey Ponomarenko again. His case remains one of the most puzzling time travel mysteries ever recorded. To this day, no one has found a clear answer. Whatever the truth is, one thing is certain: Sergey's story left experts speechless and still searching for answers. But the physical evidence Sergey carried would prove even more compelling than his incredible story. The camera evidence. One of the most puzzling parts of Sergey Ponomarenko's story came from the camera he was carrying when the police found him. It was an old Yamaflex 2, a model popular in the 1950s. To better understand the device, experts brought in Vladimir Pozya, a specialist in vintage cameras and film. Pozya carefully examined the camera. Right away, he confirmed it was not a replica or fake. It was a real Yamaflex 2, manufactured in the Soviet Union in the 1950s. The camera showed natural signs of wear, scratches, dust, and aging in the leather strap and metal body. Everything about it matched a camera that had been used regularly and stored for decades. The real surprise came from the film inside. The roll had not been removed or tampered with. It was original and still inside the camera, ready to be developed. When tested, the film was identified as being manufactured in 1956. Despite being over 50 years old, it was in surprisingly good condition. It had been preserved well inside the camera, which was tightly sealed and protected from light. Experts developed the film in a controlled lab. The photos shocked everyone. The pictures clearly showed scenes from Kiev in the 1950s. There were images of streets lined with old Soviet cars, people wearing clothes from that time, and storefronts with Cyrillic signs that had long been replaced or removed. The level of detail was incredible. Even weathered paint on buildings and old lampposts could be seen. Some of the buildings in the photos no longer existed in 2006. They had either been torn down or remodeled beyond recognition. Yet here they were, perfectly captured in black and white film, just as they had looked decades ago. Even more amazing was that Sergey himself appeared in several of the photos. He was seen wearing the same clothes he had on when the police found him, down to the creases and folds. One image showed him standing next to his fiancée, smiling and unaware of anything unusual. Another showed him raising the camera, seconds before the supposed time jump. But it was the final photo that drew the most attention. The last image on the roll showed something strange in the sky. It was a bell-shaped object, hovering over the rooftops. The image wasn't blurry or unclear. It was focused and centered, just like Sergey had described. Analysts examined the photo for signs of editing or trickery, but they found nothing. The photo was untouched. The lighting, shadows, and camera angles were all consistent with the rest of the film. This evidence left experts baffled. The camera was real. The film was old. The photographs matched the time period perfectly. And Sergey's appearance in the photos proved he hadn't just made up the story. The camera evidence added serious weight to the mystery. If Sergey had faked everything, how did he get a working 1950s camera with undeveloped film from that era and capture real images from a city as it was half a century earlier? With such puzzling evidence in hand, scientists began searching for rational explanations that could account for what seemed impossible. Scientific theories. The strange case of Sergey Ponomarenko left scientists and experts searching for answers. While many believed it was a hoax or a misunderstanding, others turned to science for possible explanations. Among the theories discussed, two stood out: time dilation and gravitational time distortion. Both ideas come from real, proven science, though they are rarely seen in everyday life. One of the most discussed ideas was time dilation, a concept from Albert Einstein's theory of relativity. According to Einstein, time is not fixed. It can move faster or slower depending on how fast someone is moving or how close they are to a very strong source of gravity. In simple terms, time slows down the closer you get to the speed of light. This means that if someone travels at a very high speed, close to the speed of light, time would pass much slower for them than it does for people standing still. This started as a theory on paper, but scientists have backed it up with real experiments. For example, atomic clocks placed on fast-moving jets have ticked more slowly than clocks on the ground. The difference is very small, but it proves that time dilation is real. On a much larger scale, such an effect could explain how someone like Sergey could experience only a few moments while many years passed for everyone else. Some scientists wondered if Sergey might have somehow passed through a region where this effect was extremely strong, maybe due to an unknown force or technology. If he was somehow moved at very high speed or was caught in a strange energy field, time could have slowed down for him, allowing him to skip decades. Another idea was gravitational time distortion. Again, this comes from Einstein's work. It says that time also moves slower near very massive objects, like black holes or neutron stars. This is because gravity bends space and time around these objects. Astronauts or spacecraft near such powerful gravity sources would experience time differently. For example, in theory, if you spent just a few hours near a black hole, many years could pass elsewhere in the universe. Of course, Sergey was not found near a black hole, but some scientists suggested the possibility of unknown objects or forces on Earth that might have similar effects on a much smaller scale. Could Sergey have stumbled onto something strange, like a magnetic field, a hidden energy source, or maybe even some lost ancient technology that messed with time for a moment? While there's no solid proof, the idea can't be completely ruled out. Both time dilation and gravitational distortion are real effects, but they usually need extreme conditions, like deep space or massive energy. That's why many scientists remain skeptical. If Sergey really did travel through time, it would mean that some unknown force caused these effects here on Earth, which would be groundbreaking. This leads to another question. Was it a natural event or something man-made? Some believe that if time travel did happen, it might have been due to secret technology, possibly military or extraterrestrial. Others think it could have been a natural but rare occurrence, like a wormhole or a temporary rift in space-time. Whatever the cause, Sergey's case pushed scientists to think beyond usual limits. It opened discussions on how little we still understand about time and space. While no one has proven exactly what happened to Sergey, the theories around his case remain serious and based on real science. Sergey Ponomarenko's story may sound like science fiction, but the possible explanations behind it are rooted in science fact. And as research continues, the line between the two may not be as far apart as we once believed. Shortly after Sergey Ponomarenko was admitted to the mental hospital for further evaluation, something even more baffling happened. He vanished. At the time, he was being kept in a secure hospital room. The door was locked from the outside and the windows were barred. There was no possible way for him to leave without someone noticing. Yet somehow, Sergey was gone. Hospital staff discovered the disappearance during a routine check. The door was still locked and no one had seen him leave. Security cameras added to the mystery. Footage showed Sergey entering the room, but there was no recording of him leaving. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The window was also checked. It had metal bars, tightly fixed and undamaged. There were no signs of tampering or forced entry. There were no broken pieces, no tools left behind, and no footprints or clues in or around the room. Police and hospital staff searched every part of the building, but Sergey was nowhere to be found. There was no evidence of how he could have escaped, not even a hint. His belongings, including the camera and ID, were left behind. The room was exactly how it had been when he entered. This unexplained disappearance shocked everyone involved. Once again, people began to wonder, was Sergey a time traveler? Had he returned to his original time or vanished into another one? No one could say for sure, but his disappearance only deepened the mystery. Historical records, as the strange case of Sergey Ponomarenko drew more attention, researchers began digging into old records to see if anyone by that name had ever existed in the past. What they found added a whole new layer to the mystery. In Soviet-era police files from the early 1960s, a missing person report surfaced. It was filed in Kiev by a young woman named Valentina, who claimed her fiancé, Sergey Ponomarenko, had vanished without explanation in 1958. According to the report, Sergey had gone out one afternoon to take photographs with his Yamaflex 2 camera and never came back. The details of the report matched perfectly with the story Sergey had told in 2006 before he disappeared again. But the report didn't stop there. Valentina had also claimed that a few days after filing the report, Sergey suddenly returned. However, something about him was different. He seemed paranoid, distant, and confused. He talked about things that didn't exist yet. He mentioned technology that didn't exist and spoke of a future world. Valentina didn't understand what he was saying, and over time, she grew worried. She said he became obsessed with the idea of disappearing again. He kept saying he wasn't supposed to be there, and that they might come looking for him. Then, in the early 1970s, he vanished once more, this time for good. No trace of him was ever found after that. Another missing person report was filed, but no leads ever surfaced. Decades later, in the 1990s, Valentina received something shocking in the mail: a photo. There was no return address, just the picture and a note. The photo showed an older Sergey, now appearing to be in his late 60s or early 70s, standing in a city that looked like Kiev, but with futuristic buildings and modern technology, unlike anything that existed at the time. The back of the photo had a handwritten message: "I will be back soon." Experts examined the photo. It didn't appear to be edited. Sergey looked older but still recognizable. The background was puzzling. It didn't match any known version of Kiev, not even the most modern parts. Some believed it showed a future version of the city. The message added more questions. Was this proof Sergey had traveled through time again? Had he sent the photo from the future? If so, how? The photo and Valentina's detailed accounts added credibility to Sergey's story. They showed that his name and strange disappearances weren't just recent claims. They had been part of public records and eyewitness testimony going back over 50 years. This historical evidence made it harder for skeptics to dismiss the case as a hoax. Too many details matched. Too many events lined up perfectly with what Sergey had said in 2006. As investigators struggled to explain Sergey's vanishing act, they decided to dig deeper into historical records. And what they found was equally startling: debunking and source analysis. While the story of Sergey Ponomarenko is fascinating, many experts have raised serious doubts about its truth. One of the biggest problems is the lack of official records. Despite claims of missing person reports, hospital files, and police investigations, no verified documents from government sources have ever been found. There are no official reports confirming Sergey's appearance in 2006 or his alleged disappearance in the 1950s or 1970s. The whole thing traces back to a 2012 episode of the Ukrainian TV show Aliens. The show presented Sergey's case as a dramatic mystery, using interviews, photos, and recreated scenes. But it never offered solid proof or access to original documents. Much of the so-called evidence is also questionable. The Soviet-era ID could have been a well-made replica. Old ID cards and vintage cameras are easy to find in antique markets or online. As for the futuristic photograph of Sergey in an unknown version of Kiev, no experts have verified its authenticity. It could have been digitally edited or staged entirely for the show. Perhaps most telling is the TV show's own disclaimer. At the end of the episode, it stated that the story was a recreation based on witness accounts, not actual historical evidence. This means that the scenes and interviews were dramatized and may not reflect real events. The science of time travel. The idea of time travel has long captured human imagination, but it's not just science fiction. Real science supports the possibility, at least in theory. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity changed how we understand time. He showed that time isn't fixed or always moving forward at the same speed. Instead, it can stretch or slow down depending on speed and gravity. This shattered the old belief that time is always linear and constant. We already have real examples of time working differently. One comes from astronauts on the International Space Station. Because they move at very high speeds in orbit, time passes slightly slower for them than for people on Earth. After long missions, they return just a tiny bit younger than they would have been if they had stayed on the ground. It's not much, but it proves time travel into the future, in a very small way, is real. Even more dramatic effects happen near massive objects like black holes. Their intense gravity bends space and slows time. This is called gravitational time dilation. If someone spent a short time near a black hole, they might return to find that many years have passed for everyone else. Scientists have also theorized about other ways time might be affected, like local distortions in space-time, wormholes, or even the artificial creation of time fields using advanced technology. None of this is possible with current science, but it's not ruled out either. If time travel is ever fully achieved, it would require technology far beyond what we have today. Still, science leaves the door open. The strange case of Sergey Ponomarenko may not be proven, but the science behind time travel is real and full of possibilities. Time travel stories continue to fascinate us because they touch something deep within the human mind. We all fear aging and death, and the idea of escaping time offers comfort. Many people wish they could fix past mistakes or glimpse the future. These stories let us imagine those possibilities. Time is something we all live with, yet we barely understand it. It moves forward, unchanging, and we can't control it. That mystery draws us in. Whether or not time travel is real, our desire to master time reflects our hopes, fears, and endless curiosity about what lies beyond now. Sergey Ponomarenko's story remains unsolved, blurring the line between myth and science. Was he a hoax, a lost soul, or proof of time travel? Share your thoughts, spread the mystery, and subscribe for more mind-bending tales from the edge of reality.